This is Michael Rickards for the Hall Institute's Public Forum. Welcome, we're glad to have you here today, and my guest is one of our early and most distinguished guests that we've had, a person who was with us almost from the beginning, Mike Prizzuti, author, lecturer, businessman, and a true Renaissance man. We're pleased to have him with here today. I want to discuss with Michael an important issue of an article that he wrote a while ago for the Hall Institute, which became part of our first published volume. It dealt with the whole question of convicts and how really to best use them. Michael, welcome.
Michael, thanks.
Tell us a little bit about the article that you wrote for us quite a while ago, and you were also, as I said, one of our first op-ed people. I saw a fine article you wrote in the Trenton Times. I finally got your unlisted phone number. It's like trying to find
track me down.
To find Ben Lydon.
I remember.
And you have written for us faithfully ever since. This article that you wrote about convicts is a really important piece. We want to discuss it today.
Thank you, Mike. And it's great to be back at the Hall Institute. Years ago, I did some volunteer work with the Morris County Sheriff's Department. And from that, it was very successful. We were taking people that were carpenters, electricians, people who worked on boilers, and we used them as trainers to train incarcerated inmates at Morris County, their correction facility. And we had a lot of success with it. And from that experience, I formulated something that I thought could work, where it was a nexus between, we would take incarcerated people who were looking at jail sentences, and instead of putting them in jail, we would put them to work in private enterprises that would rehabilitate inner cities. So you would take, say, collectively a portion of a city, not using eminent domain, but having private people purchase buildings and putting these people to work, training them. So it was on-the-job training. And part of the training that I wrote about was to develop skill sets beyond just carpentry, electric, plumbing, and masonry, and black seal, in that they learned to be entrepreneurs, how they learned to go back into the communities. So to use that proverbial motto, give a man a fish, feed him for the day, teach him to fish, feed him for a lifetime. At the time I wrote it, and it was quite a while ago now, it's probably over 8 years or so, it never really took place in any portion of our society. But right now, when you think about it, with the unemployment, 10%, it's so important because these people are coming out of prison, out of jail, and they're competing now with people who actually have had jobs before and have never been incarcerated. So you have these folks that are going to be, do you remember the Bush administration's No Child Left Behind?
Right.
Well, think about that with outsourcing and offshoring and those things that are going on globally in our world. Where will these people have a place to work? So something like this in a private sector is absolutely necessary now. And if it's not, in a few years, we're going to have crime rates that are going to get out of control, because where do these people go to work? And if the only trade they know is being a criminal, and they've trained perhaps in jail to learn their trade a little bit better, that doesn't bode well for us in time. So it was, and by the way, it wasn't eminent domain. And it wasn't that it was a public works project. These were for-profit entities, and the buildings that these workers would rehab would then be for sale. Okay, so if somebody contributed, say, purchased a building, and they renovated that building, and those people were trained on how to renovate that building. Construction is a very easy entry industry. There's no barriers of entry into construction. I found in that experience that it was very easy to train those people on how to do that. And it cannot be outsourced. We cannot can't outsource someone to change your light fixture in your building or build a house. Those are local planted jobs that will be here forever, unlike many other jobs.
What I don't understand is we have one of the highest incarceration rates in the world in the United States. Why is it so high in the U.S.?
Michael, maybe we have more laws than anyone else. Less for your governments that are communist, where they have, everything's a law. Perhaps we're just a very, think about who we send to Washington. Primarily, we send attorneys, right? And attorneys make laws, and you have laws upon laws, and you have certain things that think about your war on drugs, and how many people are in institutions because of drugs. I'm not really an expert on how people get into prison, but I do know a little bit from my experience training those people on how you can rehabilitate them and give them something to do. And I certainly have my opinions, my philosophical opinions on the law and incarceration.
What about the program that you've sort of advocated? What needs to happen to implement that?
You have to have a coming together of government, because you have a judicial side of things, right? So people are convicted of crimes, and then they're given an opportunity to do something in the private sector. So you absolutely have to have a nexus between government and private industry. With that said, it's a nexus. It's not a government project. You just look back and look at government projects. What they attract is what we call rent seekers. Rent seekers are people who, when the government creates something, they stand by and say, what can we gain from this? You don't want to have that, because that leads to corruption. It leads to inefficiency. You want to have where it's just, you're giving me people from your system. That's what the government's going to do. There's no government money here. It's private money. And they're charitable donations for sure, okay, in that, if you lose money on a venture, all right, you could probably have a tax incentive to keep, so you can profit there. But it's to have real property, private industry, working with government, which is certainly a social issue. When you think about the tens of thousands of people that are released from prison and have nothing to do, no jobs, and now they're in a situation where they're competing against people who used to have pretty decent jobs and have no criminal records. How are they going to fare? And what are they going to do, Michael? I don't think they're just going to abide by the law. I may be a cynic in that respect, in that people who are going to get out of jail are just going to hang out and do nothing. They need to work, right? And they need to be empowered as well. These centers are in the communities that they come from. They're in Bedford-Stuyvesant, they're in Camden, New Jersey, they're in Paterson, New Jersey. They're in the middle of where the cancer reigns. So younger kids can look at something like this and look at role models. And I promise you that people will come out of that and be role models. I know of one young man who was 18 years old when I had him in a class, and he's an electrician today. And I hear he's a great Little League coach, baseball coach. Think about that, right? In itself, that's a beautiful story.
Can this be a major project for the churches in minority areas? Would they not be a natural interface between the community and the types of people that really would support these sorts of good works?
I think that's a natural fit as well. Again, something to facilitate them through. Of course, some of your faith-based organizations, some of your outreach organizations, if you will, have the logistical ability to do that.